My Aunt Dorothy had just turned 40 when she took that job in India, and being self-sufficient, she knew very well how to cook and clean for herself. All of her friends and co-workers in Madras had followed the custom of hiring servants for basic housekeeping tasks, but Dorothy hesitated. She said she did not like the idea of spending more time training a servant to handle a given task than it would take her to do it herself. She eventually decided to hire a boy, but she found it surprisingly challenging to train him to clean, cook, and serve in the manner she wanted. I had heard that story for years, and I thought I understood her perspective. But when I really began digging into her journal and the letters she wrote home from India, I began to see things in a different way. Reading her descriptions of her requirements, I'm not sure I could have lived up to her expectations. Maybe that servant boy wasn't quite as obstinate as I once thought. How good it is to be alone with no barrier between me and the work. The past 3 weeks have indeed been an experience. Getting an apartment set up in India is far more complicated than in the United States. The work being the same isn't any harder, but having an intermediary between the work and you is decidedly so. Having decided to have only one person, sight unseen, I took a person highly recommended by his brother, especially for his understanding of English. He arrived not looking too bad, but in a rather dirty dhoti, unironed. The engineer from Punamali, being from the same place as he, interviewed him, and we made an arrangement. He spent the first week getting his laboratory tests for his physical examination and purchasing and having his clothes made. He went on an expedition to the China Bazaar, shopping one day too. He always seemed willing and anxious, but he quaked in his boots in my presence. He worked hard getting things into the house, but as soon as we were here, I learned he had no experience doing any of the things I wanted done. This gave me no immediate concern, as I thought he would learn. Many people feel they could have taught their help from the beginning, rather than taking over one with persistent bad habits. Learning early that he didn't understand my speech, I took him around with me to get used to it, but he didn't get used to it, and apparently understood nothing I said. His brother said he could read, and asked me to write. This, a big chore and time-consuming, I did, and wrote specific instructions for every job. Each day I tried to give a different kind of lesson, and had review days. I wrote the instructions. I gave them verbally. I demonstrated. Then I would ask him to show me how. Getting across the idea of boiling water was perhaps the most difficult concept. And in my book, the jokes about American brides boiling water will cease to be funny. Boiling water 20 minutes will be quite an accomplishment. The 20 minutes was what got in the way. I understood this one day when he said, "But it won't boil in 20 minutes." Having pots of many sizes and an oil stove, this is quite true. The time to get to the boiling point from the beginning is much longer than 20 minutes, and maybe 4 hours for my 4-gallon brass pot. Next on the list in order of importance was washing dishes. Getting to this, a job he was anxious to do, took time, as for 3 days I had no stove. Finally, the day came when we could boil water to scald the dishes. After demonstrating how to do all of the pieces, from washing in hot soapy water to pouring boiling water over them, I then left. They were all carefully put away when I returned. How they were done, I do not know, but they are being redone since the glass pitchers still have the black dirt on all the edges. This could be demonstrated. The next thing was washing vegetables and fruits. Keeping 3 ideas together has been, up until this time, impossible. After the first demonstration, knowing that I would cook all the vegetables, I considered dispensing with the third process of soaking for 30 minutes in permanganate or perchloride dissolved in boiling water. This was to be preceded by washing with soap and water, rinsing in boiled water that had been cooled. To help with this, I had gotten 2 covered earthenware jugs and demonstrated the proper sterilizing technique and ways to handle to prevent contamination, and filled them with water. Only boiled water is to be poured into them. But after rechecking and reteaching and observing his technique, I think the 3 steps are necessary. The thing he wanted most to do was work in the kitchen, so I have tried that. It would be most helpful if he could learn to watch the pressure gauge on the cooker and keep it constant. But to date, this idea of adjusting the heat to keep it up or down has not penetrated. I feel it is too dangerous to take any chances on it blowing up in his face. Other lessons to be taught were how to make a bed. After a week of coming home and finding the spread and the sheet rolled up, I decided to ask him to make it with clean sheets last Sunday. The spread went under the sheet. Then I realized he had no experience with our kind of beds. Most Indian homes have a thin mattress or even cane mats, which are rolled up and stored in the daytime and rolled out on the floor or in a courtyard at night. When it came to teaching him to serve, there were new problems. Indians eat with the right hand, without silverware. The food is served on a banana leaf from the pots. There are exceptions to this, but it is the rule. What to do with all of the things needed for a place setting was a mystery to him. My friend Mrs. Rim, who is setting up a house also this week, but with 4 experienced people, helped with the training program by coming for dinner. The first time I had the same thing for lunch as a trial practice. Everything was written down step by step and why. It was all shown to him. The simplest process was worked out. I, of course, prepared the meal. I carefully observed everything because food properly prepared must not be contaminated in the serving. Well, last night when Mrs. Rim came, he was sent home. I couldn't stand any more training this week. Both of us were so happy to have our meal as she would in Germany and I in the United States. I want to attend to my own water boiling. I am so thankful I decided to do my own cooking. I do not have time to clutter up my life with more people. Mrs. Rim's description of keeping 4 people busy plus a sewing woman for the past 2 weeks is amusing. It is trying and exhausting. It is difficult for some people to see that food preparation for one person whose tastes are simple is not a time-consuming procedure. Fruits and vegetables are good and plentiful. One of the most difficult things for me to do is to wait for someone to come and do something I could have done plus 3 other jobs before they get there. I don't propose to pay to adjust my timing to someone slow as Christmas, but that is what it looks like.